Welcome to Mahrasha on the daf. We're holding in Chulin daf nun hey. The Gemara in the top of Mudala brings that if there is broken pieces of clay, if they can be used for a certain amount of oil, so then they're still mekabel tuma. If they're kalim and they're small until the size of a lug, so they need to have oil kedei sichas koton, enough to anoint a young child. If it's larger than a lug until the size of a seah, it needs to be able to hold a revis. And if it's larger than that, it needs to be able to hold chatzi lug. So it comes out from our Gemara that in the larger pieces of clay, and if it holds chatzi lug or more, so that is mekabel tuma. If it holds less than chatzi lug, it's not mekabel tuma. So Mahrasha over here says a gewaltige hora. He says that we're learning this sugya in the yeshiva on Chanukah. So he came with the following concept. He says, what menorah do the Chashmonaim use to light the menorah in Beis Hamikdash during Chanukah? As we know, everything was tameh. That's so they couldn't have the oil for the menorah. So the menorah was also tameh. So the menorah was tameh. Which menorah did they use? So the Mahrasha brings the Mizrachi, the Rehaim, that says that they used the menorah made out of wood. The Mahrasha disagrees, and he says the reason why, because they were tameh as well. And if they made a menorah out of wood, they would be metameh the wood. And in addition, says the Mahrasha, that we have the Gemaras that tell us that there's a shita that says that you cannot build a menorah out of wood. So why would they build a menorah out of wood? Says the Mahrasha, here's what he thinks happens. They build a menorah doing Chanukah made out of clay, made out of cheres. Why is cheres not mekabel tuma? Because they made sure to use broken pieces of cheres. And broken pieces of cheres, what's the minimum amount they needs to hold? We said chatzi lug. So says the Mahrasha, what they did, they used broken pieces of cheres that do not hold chatzi lug. So that's why it's not mekabel tuma. So says the Mahrasha, according to this, we answer the question of the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef asked, why do we have 8 nights of Chanukah? Oh, the first night is not an ace. They had enough oil for the first night. But according to what Mahrasha tells us, they did not put enough oil for the first night because they were using a broken piece of cheres that cannot hold more than chatzi lug. How much of oil do you need in order to light the entire night? The Gemara tells us that in the long nights of the winter, you need to have a chatzi lug. Chatzi lug is the shear for the menorah for every night. But why do we have chatzi lug? Because the longest nights of the year, which is the winter, it takes chatzi lug to light the entire night. But they use broken piece of cheres which cannot hold chatzi lug. So they did not have enough oil even for one night. So in the first night of Chanukah, there was already a miracle. There was already a nace. Because they did not have enough to light the entire night because they didn't put oil enough of chatzi lug. Because if it would be chatzi lug, so then it would be kabel tuma. If you don't have chatzi lug, it's not supposed to light the entire night. It's still lit the entire night. So there was a miracle even in the first night of Chanukah, answering the famous question of Beis Yosef. So why do we have Chanukah for 8 days? Because the first night was also a miracle. That's the Chidush of the Mahrasha that he says in our sugya during the days of Chanukah. So there's 2 main questions that Chulin ask on the Mahrasha. The B'chor Shor on Masechet Shabbos Daf Chof Aleph, he asked question number 1, that the same Gemara that says that you can't make a menorah out of wood, says you can't make a menorah out of klicheres, out of clay. So Mahrasha says they couldn't use a wooden menorah because you're not supposed to make a menorah out of wood. But so therefore they made a menorah out of cheres. But menorah out of cheres is also something you're not supposed to do. So this, the Aruch Laner in Rosh Hashanah Daf Chof Daled, he answers this question. He says, what the Mahrasha means to say is, of course they didn't make a menorah lechatchila out of clay. They just had no choice. They couldn't use a regular menorah because it was tameh. So which item, which material should they use? If they use wood, it doesn't help because the wood becomes tameh. So they use clay. Clay is the solution to have something which doesn't make mekabel tuma, even though it's not kosher lechatchila. But the B'chor Shor adds more. He says, why don't they use clay avonim or clay adama? Vessels made out of stone or made out of the earth. There's no reason that clay should be better than that. So the B'chor Shor ends and says, Mahrasha did not really mean to say this part. He just said it just to sharpen the Talmidim. But now that's the real vart. Another question brings the Sefer Lev Arya over here in our Masechta. And this seems to be like a real pircha alimto. It says, the Mahrasha brings that, why was it up to chatzi lug? Because in our Gemara, in the list of our Gemara says that the larger pieces of cheres, which is seyat sasayim, so the pieces that are left from that kli, if it can contain chatzilug, it gets tumo. So Mahrasha says, in order to make sure not to get tumo, you have to have less than chatzilug. But says the Levarya, look at the Mishnah there, Maseches Kelim. This Gemara here is quoting a Mishnah Maseches Kelim. The Mishnah there brings another level, another size of Kelim. After it says Miseyat Satay Chatzilug, it says Misatay Ve'at Sholish Ve'at Chomesh, meaning a larger kli. Then the din is Bilug, not Bechatzilug. So says the Levarya, according to the Mahrasha, why didn't they use larger pieces of cheres? Take cheres that used to be larger, and then they can take a piece of it, and it can contain up to a lug of oil, and then you have enough oil for the whole night, and it's still amikabel tuma. So says the Levarya himself, you see, like the Mahrasha, the Mahrasha didn't actually mean to say this word, it's only the Chadid boys at Talmidim. I saw that someone says that maybe it's mashra from the Rambam that he did not have the girsa of this extra sentence in the Mishnah Maseches Kelim, so maybe that's the pshat of the Mahrasha. But lule, this answer, really this question of the Levarya seems to be a pircha limto on the Mahrasha. But Meikach is though nifla moed, you learn a sugya here Maseches Chulin, and somehow the Mahrasha connects it to Chag Chanukah to show the whole Torah's miksha achas. Anyone who wants to join the sponsor of Shomachshava Shiurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.